is the stock reed cage assembly from KTM that we're going to be replacing today. This bike kind of had a weird flutter at the top of the RPM and wouldn't really go into over rev like I know it's supposed to and has, and I'm going to show you guys why. This is the stock cage and reed assembly. I actually flipped these around already to try to put the tension on the reverse side of what they'd been used to. But you can just see how much of a gap there is, and these are supposed to seal perfectly, because you definitely don't want any fuel and air coming back through these, because it'll just cause disturbance and such in the carburetor. And at high RPM, or an L RPM, we need this to be working correctly. And these are the new ones. I went with Moto Tassanari VForce3 because I've used these in the past on my other two strokes. I had a set on my YZ250, my YZ125, and they work flawlessly for, I had both those bikes for over 100 hours, and I never even changed the reeds. Every time I checked them, they were fine. So this is the Moto Tassanari unit. Much bigger surface area, you can already tell. Let's put these side by side. So the reeds themselves are actually a lot bigger on this unit, so that's good. There's more mating area and sealing surface, and the reed cage actually extends a little further too, versus the stock one that comes pretty short against the reed. I actually unboxed this earlier, and I'm a teeny bit upset because you can see on these brand new V-Force that they're also not perfectly sealing. It's a little concerning, but I'm going to go ahead and put them in the bike and do a compression check and ride it as well to see what the difference is, if any. I'm actually going to go ahead and make an install video right now and show you guys how to install these real quick. Just a couple tools you'll need. I already took the old one off like last week when I was having this issue because I wanted to check them. I already cleaned the gasket surface off, I cleaned the bolts, I cleaned the boot flange for the carburetor. I did already read the instructions for the Moto Tassanari just to make sure there wasn't anything specific to this bike, which there's not. There's only one thing I kind of noticed with the stock carburetor boot, is that it rubbed a little bit on the exhaust right here, so I went ahead and ground it down just a little bit, just enough to clearance it. I already test fitted on the bike, on the motor, and it no longer rubs the exhaust, so that's good. And then we're going to want to make sure to orient this the same way that it came out, so it goes out like that, and then make sure this block that comes with the V-Force is in the correct side, so you can see that it's offset to the left side, or you can flip this around and offset it to the right, and we want it offset to the left because that is the way the stock one is, and that is the way that the stock boot flows. Okay, so I went ahead and I put the boot on the reeds, or on the reed cage assembly, because I wanted to make sure that the holes line up perfectly with the cage, which they do, and then I also wanted to make sure that the center hole for the boot transitioned to the actual reed cage. Didn't have any burrs or anything, so I kind of cleaned it up a little bit. I just took a file and transitioned the port a little bit better, because we don't really want any, if it was like stepped like this on the bottom right there, then obviously that would not be okay. So I transitioned as best as I could, and I'm pretty happy with the result. So right now I'm going to go ahead and get the gasket. We're going to put the gasket on this side, and then this side has rubber protrusion on it that will seal against this cage. I always use a little bit of gasket maker I'm using this Yamalube Yamabond 4 because I have such a big tube of it and I don't really need it. I do this because these compound plastic, whatever this is made of, sometimes doesn't exactly seal perfectly against the mating surface right here or against the boot, and I don't want it to be a problem later. I've always done it this way and never had a problem, so I'm going to go ahead and do this way. The gasket's on there, and now I'm going to put a small amount of silicone on the other side to seal against the gasket real quick. Just going to start it with this top bolt. Just get it started. I believe it's a T30 Torx or an 8mm socket. I would recommend getting them all snug and then tightening them. The torque on these are 6 Newton meters, so I will get out my torque wrench in a second here. As soon as I get all these snug down, you'll start to see some of that gasket maker being pinched out, and we're going to let that dry, and then I'm going to clean that up in about a day. I'll go over it with like a razor and cut the excess off so it looks clean, because we don't like it looking sloppy. Alright, now I'm going to go grab my torque wrench, and I'm going to torque all these to spec, which is 6 Newton meters, which is not very much. Alright, so I cleaned up all the silicone just to make it look better. You can see it looks pretty good. Go ahead and make sure if you put any, I always put like rags and stuff, because I don't like dirt getting in things, but if you do it that way, make sure you take the rag out of whatever it was in before you put everything back together. I'm going to go ahead and install the carburetor now, and that's it. I tightened those bolts to 6 Newton meters and she's good to go. I'm going to put the carb back on now and this thing will be done. Just going to pull the boot back with your left hand. Almost got it. There we go. So then put this clamp back on the flange right here, and this one as well. And then I'm going to bring you guys over here real quick and show you how to align the carburetor. So on the boot coming out of the air box, the inlet to the carburetor, you can see that there's this little teeny little protrusion off the air boot. It's like a little arrow right there. It's really hard to see, but you basically want that to be lined up with the top line that says Cayenne, or however you say this. So that looks lined up to me. Just use your best judgment. If it's slightly off, doesn't really matter. but you want the carburetor to be set where they want it at. You don't want it to be sideways or anything. So I'm good with right there. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up these clamps now. I always put the clamps where they're easiest to get to for the next time. Make sure it's nice and snug. And make sure it's fully seated into the boots. The inlet manifold side, reed side, and the inlet side of the carburetor. Airbox side. So I'm just doing these about hand tight, and then I'm going to come over with a screwdriver and make sure that they're good. They're good. Heh. So then we can just verify that's good. Now we can go ahead and put the fuel line on, which is this little guy. That's pretty much it. I just gotta put the slide back in and then route these hoses down here and we're done. But you guys can see it's pretty simple installation, especially on these bikes. Let me know if you guys want to see anything else specific. I don't really have too many bikes to work on right now, but if you guys want to see something and I have it around, or anything for that matter, go ahead and just post it in the comments and I will do my best. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope this helps someone. I'm going to go ahead and post a review soon, actually, probably in the next week or two, on how these reeds performed versus the stock. Like I said in the beginning, I'm a little bit irritated that they don't seal perfectly on the cage at the tips of the reeds, but we're going to go and ride it and see how it feels and then make a determination if that's a problem or not.